Hello, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by Rails to Trails Conservancy's Trail Expert Network. My name is Yvonne Mwangi. I'm the Trail Development Coordinator here at RTC, and I'll be facilitating today's webinar. Our topic today is public art on trails. Public art can help elevate a trail from practical infrastructure to a cherished community space, one that encourages public engagement and stewardship. We have 5 panelists on the line today representing 4 fascinating trails, where public art is a prominent part of the trail development process and user experience. Jordy Vining is the Senior Project Manager for the Planning Office in the city of Newburyport, Massachusetts. Jordy has managed dozens of community improvement projects in this position, including multiple phases of the Clipper City Rail Trail. He will be showcasing the art installations of the rail trail and explaining how they made it happen. Next, we'll hear from Dr. Darby Trotter. After a lauded 30-year career as a practicing psychologist, Dr. Trotter transitioned into urban development, working in the redevelopment of blighted urban business and industrial districts, work which earned him various awards. Dr. Trotter is the president of the Kansas City River Trails, Inc., and will be discussing the public art program on the Riverfront Heritage Trail. Next, we'll jump to Easton, Pennsylvania, where Jim Toya will be discussing how art is central to the identity of the Carl Sterner Arts Trail. Jim is a sculptor whose work has been exhibited around the U.S. and abroad, as well as a full-time art professor at Lafayette College in Easton, where he teaches drawing. He's also the chair and curator of the Carl Sterner Arts Trail. From Charlotte, North Carolina, we have Cheryl Myers, Senior Vice President and Chief Planning and Development Officer at Charlotte Center City Partners. She's the Project Director for the Charlotte Rail Trail, and she'll be discussing how art contributes to the vibrancy of the trail. Cheryl will be joined for her presentation by her colleague Maria Florin. As a Planning and Development Associate at Charlotte Center City Partners, Maria works on various projects, programs, and policies dedicated to the continued placemaking and physical development of Center City. She is the project manager for the Charlotte Rail Trail. All 5 presenters will stick around at the end of the webinar to answer any questions you may have in the time allotted. In the event we don't have time to answer your question, or if questions come up down the road, you'll find contact information for Jordy, Darby, Jim, Cheryl, Maria, and myself on the final slide of this presentation. Now, before I turn the mic over to Jordy to begin his presentation, I need to run quickly through some basic housekeeping. First, as you probably already noticed, all attendees will not be able to speak during today's webinar. All attendees are automatically muted as they join to keep background noise to a minimum. My colleague, Eli Griffin, is on the call today to diagnose and fix any tech problems that may emerge on our end, but he'll be unable to help with individual tech problems. Your best course of action instead is to contact GoToWebinar's free customer support directly, or view a selection of help topics at the links shown on the screen. I encourage you to copy those down now before we move on from this slide. As I mentioned, we've built in some time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. Please feel free to type any content-related questions as you think of them in the expandable question box on the right-hand side of your screen at any time. If for whatever reason you lose the webinar connection, please re-click your login link. You will be able to rejoin the ongoing session at any time. Finally, after today's webinar, you will receive a follow-up email containing a survey asking you to rate our performance on today's webinar, more information about RTC's Trail Expert Network with a link to sign up for occasional email notices from us, and perhaps most importantly, a recording of today's webinar. RTC's website has recently undergone a redesign. If you would like to view our resources, simply go to railstotrails.org and select Resources. You can find the Trail Building Toolbox, a how-to guide for trail development, which includes a public art page, as well as past webinars and much more. That's railstotrails.org under Resources. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Jordy, to discuss the art on the Clipper City Rail Trail.
Hello, everybody. This is Jordy Vining, as mentioned, of Newburyport, Massachusetts. And I'd say just to start establishing public art during the past 15 or plus years has been really one of the most compelling and satisfying parts of my work life. I am just getting going here on the slides. Okay, so this is a photo I took of two of the larger landscape-sized sculptures along the trail. Newburyport, Massachusetts, is a small city of about 18,000 people. The rail trail is a loop, which is about 3 miles long. I'm a huge booster of rail trails. I've walked and biked on a lot of them throughout the Northeast. And let's face it, some rail trails can sometimes be boring if they're long and straight and the landscape is the same as far as the eye can see. So strategically placed art can really make a huge difference in people's experience. I want to start by clicking through a number of examples of the public art on our trail, just to provide you with a sense of the installations. And then I'm going to talk about some of the nuts and bolts of how we got there. I'm going to click through these relatively quickly. I'd love to stop and talk about every single one of them. There's lots of history in every piece, but just for the sake of time, I'm going to go right through. There's about 24 permanent sculptural installations, as well as some temporary, and there's another dozen murals, plus some sculptural gardens. So I'm just going to click through these quickly. A couple of pieces by Rob Lorenzen. These are Massachusetts artists. Jamie Burns. Some stainless steel on granite block walls along the trail. Peace offering as we get to the riverfront. Another one by Bob Kimball on the wall. This is actually a 40-year-old sculpture by Sasson Soffer in a woodland part. The Steam Loco, a very popular play sculpture. Tomahawk. A smaller one, Small World. Torrential Flight. A piece by James Irving Westerman of Vermont. New Hampshire artist Joe Gray. An Imagined Place. Great Vermont marble piece by Rick Rothrock. Wendy Klimper's Elk, made of rebar. Gillian Christie's, one of Dale Rogers' several pieces, another one by Dale out of Haverhill, Massachusetts. Found art, quarry stone remnant. Some granite blocks arranged by yours truly. Sparrows, a large mural in a highway underpass. It's about a dozen murals along a fence section. Some sculptural gardens. Some ad hoc art or guerrilla art that's cropped up. We have a couple of works in progress that are going to be installed in the next week or two. There's a larger than life osprey, a shipwreck, and something using LED light and stainless steel. So getting to the nuts and bolts of how, that was a quick overview. In terms of how to integrate public art into one's trail, there's no cookbook, there's no one way. I think a particularly important message is that public art can be established in an ad hoc fashion. It can grow organically, and I think it can be pretty successful. It's okay to start small. This is a photo of a small 7-year-old boy who did much of the fundraising for one of the first pieces of art, the Elk by Wendy Klimper. And this inset photo is what he looks like now. In our case, we started developing the public art basically at the same time as developing the design for the trail. And we started with nothing. We had no funding. We had no particular mandate for public art. We started small with a single area of rotating temporary exhibits, which was funded by a few $100s from local banks. And starting small for us, and I think probably for others, it allows one to test the reaction of the public, as well as the political leadership to public art in the landscape. It allows one to have a tangible impact without significant investments. It allows one to develop a network or start to develop a network and relationships with artists. And it allows one to start developing a sustainable process. One of the elements everyone needs to determine is whether the selection of the public art is essentially by an individual curator or by a committee or potentially both in different circumstances. For us, we were sanctioned by our city's mayor to start a committee, which included me and several volunteers from a local arts organization. And it was really important to tap into the perspective and knowledge of an existing local arts organization. I would strongly recommend that if you have one. However, that initial selection committee did not last for more than about 2 years. There were too many arguments over the approach and individual sculptures and so forth, and people dropped out. So we transformed our model to a single curator for the sculpture park, and then I became the individual curator for the permanent work along the trail corridor with some informal input from others, and sculptures ultimately being approved by the mayor, she's exercised veto power only a couple of times. And on the other hand, we did establish a one-time committee of 3 people for the selection of 11 of the murals, and we created a second sculpture park off the rail trail, which included establishing a selection committee. Selection of art. There's several elements to think through regarding selection. The primary one is whether the art is going to be temporary or permanent. There's pros and cons to both. For instance, it's generally easier to secure temporary exhibits. It's much less expensive. One can test out sculptures and then potentially purchase them permanently, or you can let them disappear. However, you can be left with nothing after the exhibition period is over unless you're able to seek new work, and it can be sad to see favorite works disappear. Can leave a hole in the landscape in the trail corridor. So our first sculpture park lasted actually for 9 years, 9 annual exhibitions, and then I couldn't keep finding funding to keep it going with artist stipends and so forth. The second newer sculpture park's about 4 years old. So overall, we have a blend with a primary focus on permanent installations, but also some temporary ones. Durability. Materials, basically outdoors art, as well as the associated bases and signs, it really requires durable materials to resist weather, as well as sometimes resist people. So most of our sculpture is stone and steel and aluminum and occasionally bronze. There's some with finishes, coatings, powder coating, and paint, and those have generally needed maintenance every few years. Some have had moving parts, like bicycle parts, and those typically have not lasted for us. Temporary exhibits can obviously be less robust, like pine wood or something like that. And so variety versus themes, we have largely focused on providing variety of public art, although we've also had theme-based art, such as the mural corridor, which really focuses largely on local landscapes and streetscapes. I guess we found our public to have pretty diverse tastes when it comes to art. Many people over the years will tell me about their favorite pieces as well as their least favorite pieces, and more than one occasion those are opposites of each other. So we consciously have provided a mix that allows people to like at least some of the works, even if they don't like them all. And let's see, we also consciously select pieces, at least several pieces, that explicitly allow for and encourage interaction, such as touching and climbing on and looking through and sitting on and playing on and so forth, including some pieces that are geared specifically towards kids, playable sculptures for children. This is the inside of the STEAM loco, which was made by artists who create exhibits for the Kid City Museum. And let's see, so we try to avoid apolitical art and overtly politicized art, social commentary, things that the mayor thinks could cause offense, due to explicit political, religious, or sexual themes, for better or worse. We try for diversity. I'm going to have to keep going here as I just have a few minutes left. Fundraising, funding. Some trails are able to get a single or a couple of very large grants. We've generally had to scrap for funding from a wide variety of sources, local businesses, local banks, local charitable foundations. We formed a nonprofit trail advocacy group that does fundraising. We've also had a number of community yard sales and events along those lines. We have generally had difficulty raising funding from wealthy individuals, although we've got some smaller ones. It's also generally been difficult getting capital funding from local government. We've gotten a couple of grants from the Recreational Trails Grant Program, which I highly recommend. We have asked artists for donations and discounts in order to make it possible, and many have been really generous about that. And we generally try to fundraise for overall versus individual pieces. We've done a call to artists for the sculpture parks and the murals, but in general, we've had a more informal approach. We've really let the work evolve, cultivating artists and ideas, allowing things to evolve over the course of years. We've had artists basically tell us to not rigidly define where art's going to go and so forth, but to allow a more informal approach. So we focus largely on local artists, but haven't felt restricted only to local artists. I'd say maybe 10% comes from other regions. We have commissioned a number of pieces, unique pieces for particular spaces, and we've also just simply found and acquired other pieces after a lot of web surfing and visiting studios and so forth. So whether commissioning or discovering, I like to emphasize the need to read the landscape in terms of what art to place where. Sometimes it works well to cluster or group art in some areas. Others really should have an individual standalone pieces, and other parts of the trail corridor really should have nothing because it's too narrow or too residential and so forth. Smaller pieces can get lost in an open landscape unless they're framed. We have liked finding larger pieces when we can afford them. I could go on in this respect for quite some time, as placement of art in the landscape is an interesting part of the process. We've had to learn to say no. Just because a piece is offered for free or cheaply doesn't mean that it should be accepted. I've had to do that a number of times. That can be awkward, but unsanctioned art, guerrilla art's cropped up, some of which is interesting. And basically, we've watched a number of sculptural gardens evolve. So we've had some vandalism, broken sculptures, a couple of things like that, a little bit of graffiti, but not too much. We have had them insured under the municipal insurance policy, which I think is pretty important. And basically, we try to institutionalize our care and maintenance of not only the trail but the public art, which we did primarily by essentially creating a parks department. There wasn't one before the trail, which has developed into several different staff, in addition to having volunteers and so forth. So I think that's my 15 minutes of fame. And in addition to the Q&A at the end of this webinar, I really am available one-on-one for anyone who's interested in following up on all this. Thank you for your interest, everybody, and I'm going to turn this back over to Yvonne.
Thank you so much, Jordy, for that excellent presentation and that insight into the process, what it takes to get public art on a trail. That was really great. Next, we're going to switch over to Kansas City, where Darby Trotta will be telling us about the public art program and plan for the Riverfront Heritage Trail. So, Darby, when you're ready, take it away.
Fine. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're having a good day. It's a wonderful day here. A little background and information might be helpful. In the beginning, our trail was a spontaneous growth out of a group that was banding together it was a brownfield-oriented group that was banding together in terms of developing um, rundown spaces throughout industrial and civic areas, and mostly urban areas. And as we met, people began to increasingly discuss the idea of developing a trail. There were a lot of trails being developed in Kansas City, in metropolitan Kansas City, but most of those trails were being developed in the suburban areas. So this made no sense to us. He would never develop a wheel without some spokes, and this certainly was developing a wheel without a hub. So we decided to take it on. This is, like I'm sure many of you find that this decision is, you have to confront a number of obstacles. In our way were two major rivers. There were levees, major highways, several, railroads, abundant railroads, bridges, not to mention existing buildings, and to top it all off, contaminated property. Also, in addition to all that, the trail, as it was laid out, was going to be built as a bi-state trail, so that the result of its actual construction would be done by two different cities and a port authority in another city, and the possibility and the growth of that of adding another city. So we could see that this was going to be a real train wreck if we didn't figure out how are we going to coordinate all of these different groups. And from that, we developed what is now a Kansas City River Trails, which is a all volunteer group that represents every one of those institutions and is designed for the purpose of making sure that the trail that is built is done efficiently and that it looks the same, so that there is a coordination of similarity, as well as the type of trail that's built, as well as signage and so forth. We also realized that we were far behind in terms of our growth, and so we figured that we should make sure that we're not going to make any mistakes. We couldn't make any mistakes; it would be too costly. So to get around that, we decided to develop a trail with reasonable segments in it that we could get funding on, and we also decided to develop a trail with we realized that we were building a trail across many parts of a city, and that we were going to, as a result, be in touch with a very rich history. Many cities, as they grow, as most of you know, we tend to bury our history. Cities tend to do that quite frequently. We felt that as we brought the trail around, it would be part of our responsibility to bring that history back to life, and it's been a fun part of of this development. We now have a completed 15-mile bi-state trail that crosses 2 rivers, and I'm going to spend the rest of my time talking mostly about public art. As I do that, you will see on the first slide that says public art. You'll see a reference on the bottom where you can actually send in and get our organized master plan, which we developed. I'll speak a moment or two about that. It was our thought that we wanted to expand the notion of public art as a part of urban design. We wanted to get the artists involved in the redevelopment of the city. We wanted this public art to interpret the history and the culture of Kansas City, to create a really exciting bi-state trail, to attract a wide range of trail users, and to redefine the identity and image of the revitalized properties. Some of these properties had been flooded in the past or had negative attitudes or attributes, and when people would refer to them. So we wanted to develop a new image for these new places. So the public art master plan is designed to provide the artwork that will create an identity for each segment of the Riverfront Heritage Trail and will reflect its unique history. It's a collaborative trail design, and it's designed to interpret all the aspects of the trail and bring along specific artwork that reflects the unique history of that area. At the end, the final plan was presented to the Kansas City Municipal Arts Commission and also to the Kansas City River Trails for consideration. In the next slides, you will see some of these artworks. I'm not going to go into the detail if you see things on the side, but this is the bridge that you see in the background is the ASB bridge that was finished developing in about 2001. And that's an old bridge, but it's still being actively used by the railroads. The blocks that you see in front are actually the weights that are used to raise that bridge up, and these hang on the side of that building. And we wanted people to realize how big these weights are. They look small on that bridge, but that gives everybody a new idea of just how big a structure it is. At that time, there were very few American engineering companies. When we had engineering issues like this, our country was so young. We would go to Europe for our designers with this bridge. A number of engineering companies collaborated with that, and those companies still, though somewhat different in their goals and names, they still are very busy in Kansas City and have come to represent why Kansas City has a great history of architectural and engineering. The next one is a wide bridge that has a bike trail that goes across it, and also the public art you see on the side of it. This is between two areas of one park that was divided by a highway, and so they developed this bridge for pedestrians. This art, it's between two groups of trees, and it's very frequented by flocks of birds. That became the artwork on the bridge. The next thing is you will see some lights and a small little a miniature uh, pyramid that you can see there that is designed to reflect uh, the Latin American history or roots. That one that has art that lights at night. Those panels of color on the side of that little pyramid light up at night. It's very beautiful. It's used as a stage for area plays and so forth. The next one was, and that's, if I didn't make the point clear, that's a Latin American community, so that was why that was developed there. The next thing is shows some dugout canoes, actually are dugout canoes, and some wayfinding markers that are rough wayfinding markers. The original boats that Lewis and Clark used to get back from when they got to the Pacific they came back to St. Louis totally in dugout canoes. Their boats were then gone. To get out to the Pacific, they had to use a number of different dugout canoes. So that's what those songs, and along with a historic marker that discusses the Lewis and Clark expedition. Finally, you'll see that this is a picture of a caboose. This is on page 7. It's called the Spirit Mall. It was a restored caboose that once served the Midwest and now serves to call attention to the historical events that occurred in this area, namely the first crossing of the Missouri River and the beginning of the Frontier Railroad West immediately after the Civil War. And it's called the Spirit Mall because after the Civil War, the country was absolutely broke, and there were so many people that were having to deal with the loss of people and their families. And so somehow or another in the years 1864, the construction started on this bridge, and a 3-mile track was built that was then extended and purchased by Santa Fe. The goal was to connect Chicago and the coast, so the Pacific coast. So the streets around this area, it's not in total understanding where it was going. The Pacific, in the middle of Kansas City, there's a street called Pacific Drive. You can see the historic marker down below that discusses the history of the Frontier Railroad. And the next slide, you'll see one of the few monuments to slavery in the state of Missouri. This indicates where many slaves used this area that was then covered with juniper trees and forests to escape to the free state of Kansas. This was a necessary event after 1860 when they passed, or 1840 when they passed a Slavery Act, which meant that all slaves could be captured, even ones that were heretofore mentioned as free slaves. And the final is on going over the Woodsweather Bridge, which goes over the Kansas Ridge. Is one of the ways that people in downtown Kansas used to go into the West Bottoms, where it's an industrial area, or the Central Industrial District. Along that, you'll see a number of different pieces of art. Some of those describe the river. Some of them describe Indian tribes that were there, and some of them describes the introduction of slaves enslaved skills and the effect of having slaves, and then the ability to have slaves born free in Kansas City. So this is a really exciting, different, um, small bridge. It's not a big bridge, but it attracts your attention all the way across. The 15-mile Riverfront Heritage Trail, about 90% of it is it's 100% accessible, and it's about 95% lit by in the evening. So it's a safe trail, and we work constantly to make sure that we have some money in it set aside that does nothing but to replace areas that are where we think we need to improve the work, either because weather or because of actual damage. I'm going to turn my section back over to Yvonne, and she will take it from here. It's been a pleasure getting to talk with you all. If any of you would like to know more about it, we do have a good webpage. It's on KansasCityRiverTrails.org, and it makes some reference.
Thank you so much, Darby. I thought it was absolutely fascinating how the public art on the Riverfront Heritage Trail is helping to celebrate the diverse cultures and historical heritage of the city it's in. So really appreciate you sharing that with us. So we're going to turn it over to Jim Toya in Easton, Pennsylvania, and he's going to tell us about a very exciting trail called the Carl Sterner Arts Trail, where art is very much in its DNA.
Well, thank you, Yvonne and Eli, and thanks to Rails to Trails Conservancy for inviting Carl Sterner Arts Trail to be part of this this wonderful webinar. The other trails are amazing, and it's great to learn about them and feel like we're part of something much bigger. The Carl Sterner Arts Trail, as you said, is in Easton, Pennsylvania, which is about 25,000 people in town. The trail itself is about 1.75 miles long, and it's part of a larger system of trails, which I'll show in a minute. As you can see, this is kind of the beginning of one side of the trail. The three, I call them three pieces here. To the right is Carl Sterner's Arch. To the left is a Steve Tobin sculpture called Bronze Root. And then the very large sycamore tree that's in the middle here is a witness tree. It's been dated to have been born around 1750, something like that. Quite a long time ago, and so we're doing our best to keep that healthy and vibrant. The Arts Trail is very much about the environment and geared towards the river, that this bridge, which we call it the Blue Bridge, and it is kind of one of the entrance points to the trail. The Bushkill Creek is a vibrant creek, and if you can see, I'll just give you a sense of where we are. New York is about 72 miles to the east of us, and Philadelphia is about 72 miles to the south of us. So Easton is kind of interestingly located and has become quite an art city based on the fact that many artists move out of the New York and Philadelphia area looking for kind of more affordable living spaces where they can make art. So we have a ton of artists who live in the area, and that's part due to the the artist who was the trail is named after, Carl Sterner. Our Arts Trail runs from the Silk Mill to the edge of downtown Easton. And then there's a continuation of the trail through downtown, and it becomes a Heritage Trail, DNL Trail link all the way to Hugh Park. But I'm just going to focus on basically from the Blue Bridge, which is right about here, all the way to the Silk Mill today, which everyone knows as the Carl Sterner Arts Trail. But on a whole, we've got about 5.5 miles of connected trails in Easton, all of them along the river, or two, actually three rivers. Bushkill Creek runs into the Delaware River, and then the Lehigh River runs into the Delaware a little bit further along, and that's what Hugh Park runs along. It's part of a larger set of pathways called the Two Rivers Trailways System, and those are soon to be connected even further along. So we're part of a large network, which I'm really happy to be part of. We're a fairly young trail. That is Carl Sterner's standing behind his red arch, which was installed in 2014. And Carl, as I said, was responsible for bringing many, many people to Easton. He moved to Easton in about 1980, and has he passed away just a couple of years ago. But he was really responsible for a lot of what Easton is as an art town today. We have a board of governance that comes from the town of Easton. A lot of the people who live in Easton represent the trail, from some of our elders in the town that are real godfathers of Easton to Lafayette professors and some other really wonderful people in Easton that are our constituency and bring us together as collaborators. Just a quick idea: we have nine people on our board. A very important aspect of our board is our connection with the city of Easton. We are on a public park, though the Arts Trail has jurisdiction over what it puts on the trail through an agreement with the city. We have a large Arts Advisory Council, which is really important to us, that is made up primarily of art figures throughout the country. Dan Weiss, who is the CEO of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, is on our Arts Advisory Council. He was president at Lafayette College before he went to the Met. So he's a wonderful person to have as part of it. Also some New York City art dealers and a number of other really wonderfully networked art professionals throughout Pennsylvania, across into California and other areas. So we can really tap people from all over the country to help us with ideas towards what to do on the trail and how to bring more vibrant art to the trail. Our mission is pretty basic. We work with nature as one of our guiding principles, and we try to create a transcendent natural setting. And by doing that, we hope to advance civic dialogue, promote the ambient value of creative capital that art brings to a community, bolster economic revitalization, certainly foster civic and cultural values, and of course, environmental sustainability is very important to us, as is public stewardship. And connecting the urban experience to nature to promote a holistic view of our shared human experience is really what we try to guide most of our artwork and our programming on. So we seek to create a distinctive place for sponsoring educational and cultural moments in partnership with the diverse communities that are a part of Easton's vitality. Ultimately, we aspire to become a national destination for the viewing and communion with art in a natural environment. So all these goals I'll focus on in the next few minutes. This is a 5K run that happens on the trail every year. We try to bring as many kind of public activities onto the trail as we can. And we think of the trail as a green museum. Also, a bucolic moment in urban settings. We have movies on the trail every year, 2 or 3 of them, so it brings a lot of the public out. And we have a wonderful group of assistants and friends of the trail who help us with that. We really focus on the environment, as I said, and using the river and the environment here as a natural laboratory. We work with Lafayette College, with the Nurture Nature Center, which is a wonderful organization, a nonprofit in Easton, and public schools, Boys and Girls Club, a number of things. This is a bird watching day that the Nurture Nature Center put together. We do that in the spring and record as many different birds as we can flying through. This is in preparation for movie night. These friends of the trail put up luminaries on the trail, and it creates quite a romantic evening as you exit. The Bushkill Creek is a trout sustaining and trout breeding blue ribbon stream, so we have quite a lot of fly fishermen on the stream, as well as regular bait fishermen. And community is important to us, of course. I'll skip a few little things like a list of everything we're going to do. I'll just go over what's happening on the trail right now and what you can see. Art is the glue. It does help to foster community, creates educational moments and bonds through disparate groups from our community, and it's really important as a democratic moment where people can safely declare their point of view based on what they're looking at. Everyone's equal there. Some community people. This is a tunnel that goes under the trail over to the Easton Cemetery, which is a historic cemetery. Behind you is Willie Cole's Grace Gate, and you can see it's kind of a praying person with their hands pressed up against their face, with their eyes and a smile behind them. And that is Bosco, the trail dog in the snow. David Kimball Anderson is a Santa Cruz, California artist. This piece was gifted to us early on in the development of the trail. Devin Feely is a young artist who grew up in Easton and volunteered a piece. He's a young upcoming artist, only 22 years old, so it's wonderful to have someone like him on the trail. Another local artist, Paul Deary, did this piece called Waterway, which was constructed 2 years ago. And basically, I'll just give you an idea of the example of environmental art that we have. And this is Sam Van Aken's Tree of 40 Fruit. It is literally 40 different types of stock of stone fruit that Sam came and gave a demonstration of and a learning moment for us in terms of grafting different types of stone fruits. These are some of the fruits growing right now. Rachel Hayes is a temporary work on the trail. This is not it, but she's an internationally acclaimed artist and came and installed a number of pieces last year. And they are kinetic. They move with the wind, so they're quite beautiful. And some of them are installed deep into the trail setting. And when some of these pieces finish off, they actually were turned into bags. We had volunteers sew bags to give to homeless shelters for people to take away with them so they could carry their works away. The Young Masters Wall is an opportunity for different community groups to actually display their talents. And we have probably a dozen different groups who regularly come and do mural work on the wall. Danny Moyer is our Young Masters Wall coordinator and an artist and an educator in the area, and he does a fantastic job with that. So Boys and Girls Clubs, Girl Scouts, any number of groups come monthly to do murals on the wall. And this piece will be installed next month on the trail. This is a Brandon Ballinger sculpture. of moth wings, and it gets lit up at night, and it attracts insects, flying insects. And then Brandon's a biologist and an artist, and we have coordinated a bug and Bushkill Creek symposium on the trail for September. Brandon will be there along with about half a dozen other entomologists and fly fishermen and scientists and hydrologists to talk about the health of the river using this artwork as a jumping off point. We'll collect bugs on the trail in the evening after a barbecue and talk about the various types of insects that we're seeing, and if we're seeing any invasive species, if we're missing any species that should be there, and getting a general sense of how insects can give you a good indicator of stream health. And the musical path was a collaborative piece we did with Lafayette College, where students, engineering and art students came together to design a musical chime program. This is early on in the stages. This is John Gossick. Johnny was a music major and computer science major at Lafayette, and he composed most of the work of the chimes. There are 6 chime sets. This one actually plays Beethoven's Für Elise. So if a little kid was running with a stick down a fence post, fence post, or use this like that, he would unknowingly start, or she would start playing Für Elise. So it's a great kind of entry into a musical exploration. And that's Max Weinberg, Bruce Springsteen's drummer, who actually came to help us celebrate the unveiling of the chimes just in the last few months. And we have many other events like this that go on. We try to figure out a way to incorporate the community in any of the projects that we do, and we asked artists to actively engage themselves and come up with ideas for that. That's pretty much it. I thank you guys so much for your time, and of course, you can get in touch with me through the Arts Trail at any time, but I'll send it back to Yvonne.
Thank you so much, Jim. It's really interesting to see how the Carl Sterner Arts Trail has gotten such a seamless marriage of art and nature and science and art. That's really cool. So we're going to move on to our final pair of presenters from Charlotte, North Carolina. They'll be talking about a very fun project, the Charlotte Rail Trail. So Cheryl and Maria, anytime you're ready, you can just go ahead.
Thanks a lot, Yvonne. And good afternoon, everyone. Greetings from beautiful and very hot today, Charlotte. It's in the 90s. Our organization, Charlotte Center City Partners, is the Business Improvement District, or BID organization for our downtown. And so today we're really excited to tell you all about the Charlotte Rail Trail. For a little background, Charlotte is North Carolina's largest city with a population of over 860,000 people. It's the 17th largest city in the U.S. by population and is the 8th fastest growing city in the U.S. The Charlotte Rail Trail, shown as the orange line on the map. Let me see if I can show you on the pointer right here, that orange line there. It's a 3.5 mile multi-use path that runs along our Blue Line light rail through our downtown, which, by the way, here in Charlotte we call Uptown, and the South End neighborhood. That's South End. The South End area that you see on the map was originally an industrial area, but over the past 12 years since the Blue Line began to run, the light rail line has catalyzed over $2.2 billion in private development and has transformed the South End into a bustling mixed-use neighborhood especially for millennials. The trail was originally built as an emergency access path alongside the rail line. And the original idea to enhance the trail and make something special out of this path was identified back in the late 90s. Once we decided we wanted to do something, we created a high-level vision plan for how to enhance the path. And then we produced a more detailed framework plan that recommended transforming this 12-foot asphalt pathway into an urban linear commons that unites and connects all of the neighborhoods along the trail. The plans also recommended creating neat activity areas with retail, public art, and programming in over 70 found and leftover spaces. We then developed a public art master plan that identifies places to create a curated outdoor gallery experience along the trail. One of the guiding principles in the art plan is to make the trail dynamic, kind of like a museum, with some permanent art, but also with lots of temporary and rotating art to keep it interesting and to keep people coming back to see what's new. We wanted to engage with national artists, but we really wanted to focus a great deal on local artists too. So for management, why is the bid so involved in enhancing and managing this trail? Well, the trail runs right through the heart of the center city. It runs through the two areas of our city that our organization manages and promotes. And since we've been working on it, the trail's become a beloved regional destination, averaging 60,000 monthly users, with the potential to soon hit 1 million users annually. The trail is located within a city-owned rail line easement, and the transit agency has granted our organization the license to manage the trail and curate the public art and the activity areas and program it. Our project, the rail trail, doesn't have any dedicated funds, so like some of the other folk you've heard today, we are very scrappy, and each of our projects is funded on a case-by-case basis through grants, public sector investment, and private sector sponsorships. A partnership between the transit system, our organization, and private property owners maintain the trail. So some challenges. Even though the trail is located within a city easement, it's also made up of close to 100 adjacent property owners. So about 85% of the potential project spaces we want to program are privately owned. So as you can imagine, making trail enhancements and adding art and activity areas can sometimes be a real challenge.
And now we'll talk a bit about programming. Public art is just one of the ways that we program the trail. Whether through live music, a juggling trio with an accordion player, or an interactive drum circle, we make sure that our programming is creative and unique. The community has even begun to program the trail on its own through run clubs, community cleanups, and bubble parades. We have also curated a very successful pop-up event on the trail called Front Porch Sundays. Once a month in the spring, summer, and fall, over 60 cool local vendors, including several local artists, come together to create this fun, distinct pop-up market. Over the past few years, we have installed various artistic and interactive elements on the trail. Projects run the gamut from small to large, from yarn bombing and little free libraries to an exclamation point sculpture, as you can see on the bottom left, and artist-designed bright yellow chairs that you can see on the bottom right, and also these funky chickens that you see in this enclosed fence in the middle. One of the very first installations that we did, the rail trail chalkboard, turned an otherwise dead space into a special moment for self-expression. From an epic proposal to a first grader's wise advice to impromptu family photos and thoughts from local teens, the chalkboard has had its share of memories. Another fun interactive piece on the trail is called Hex Pong, which is a different kind of ping pong table that combines art and function.
So as Maria said, we've also completed much larger projects, such as this Duke Energy electrical substation that you see on the slide. For this project, we worked closely with Duke to turn their dark, mundane power substation and radio tower into an illuminating piece of public art with rotating and changing colors. This was a great partnership with Duke, and it demonstrated what's possible through private-public collaboration. Private property owners have finally caught on to and embraced the trail and have begun to see it as a real asset. The project you see here is called The Sting. It's a great example where a property owner curated their own art by having one of their own employees draw up and create this wonderful comic strip. Engagement and programming is a huge part of what we do. It's incorporated and we think about it for each project, and especially our art projects. For example, the project you see here is called Magic Carpet Murals. We worked with some great artists out of Baltimore, Maryland, where we engage kids at a nearby after-school program. The students learned about symmetry and color palettes before they created unique designs with colorful paper shapes. And then the artists turned these shapes into the mural art piece. The kids and other members of the community even helped actually paint the murals on the trail. So here you see the final designs. We've got 3 total Magic Carpet murals on the trail, which are, each of them are 100 feet long. And we think they add a surprising and delightful experience that can only be found in our city on the rail trail. In fact, these murals are one of the most Instagram places in our city.
The Kaboom project came from the idea to build a children's musical activity area on the trail. We engaged kids with that same neighborhood after-school program to help come up with the ideas and the designs for the project, including what kind of instruments and seating we would have. We also worked with our local community college graphic design class to design and paint the mural on the trail, which is a visual representation of the word kaboom in a sound wave. And then once we completed this project, we held a few Saturday morning musical sessions that was very popular with families and young kids. Public art is not just about murals and sculptures for us. Even functional structures and architecture are part of our trail art. Edna's Porch is a relaxing activity area with a porch that has a yellow structure, stepping stones, seating, and porch swings. And if you look at the before picture in the top left corner, you could see it was just a patch of grass in front of a boring substation along the trail. And the porch was named after the artist's grandmother, Edna, who helped inspire the project. And as you can see in the upper right picture, this project, Fowler Porch, was also once a patch of grass between the trail and a parking lot. The property owner was actually inspired by the rail trail vision and decided to fund this neat project for their property. It consists of seating, a beautiful metal screen that was designed by a local steel artist that blocks the adjacent parking lot, and plus that fun yellow seesaw that kids and adults love to play on. This project, Kingston Plaza, was a space recommended in the Rail Trail Framework Plan. And as you can see in the top left picture, it used to be a dead-end street that was separated from the trail. And so we worked with our city Department of Transportation to turn it into a better accessible connection that included a ramp, steps, landscaping, and a plaza. The plaza reserves a space for a future iconic piece of art that will serve as a beacon and a gateway to the adjacent neighborhoods. And we're continuing to work on a funding strategy for that piece.
Yeah, so the building that you saw behind the Kingston Plaza that Maria just talked about is called Dilworth Artisan Station. And this is home to over 32 artist studios and galleries. The Public Art Master Plan recommended that we install a mural that would span across 20 bricked-in windows on the upper 2 floors of the building. You can see what it looked like in the before picture on the upper left. So we put out a call to artists, of the artists in the building, to come up with some ideas for a mural. And the one that was selected brings a lot of color and life to this part of the trail and helps bring the art and creativity that is in the building to the outside for everybody to see. The Color Forest project is our most recently completed piece. It's comprised of 100 colorful steel poles ranging from 8 to 12 feet high that line both sides of the trail, and we think they do a lot to enhance the edges of 2 very ugly parking lots. We still have other projects in the works. One of the next projects to come online soon is called Steel Yard. As you can see, this parking deck is a big eyesore on the trail. So we've been working with the property managers of this deck for a very long time to beautify this deck. We've learned to be extremely patient as the property managers have changed many, many times. So finally, we have an agreement with them, and this mural will be installed next month. Yay!
This map here shows the location of 2 remaining gaps on the trail that still need to be built. And we're working with the city to build out these final gaps to provide a safe path for pedestrians and cyclists. We call these spaces Grove and Field. Once the gaps are built, we plan to activate these spaces with lighting, seating, programming, and most importantly, with art, including a big colorful mural that will be painted on the parking lot next to the trail. And these elements will help transform these sites into lively, more engaging places. Another major project that was identified in the vision plan and the framework plan is this beautiful open space where the trail terminates at the edge of South End. It's the front lawn of the transit system's maintenance facility, so it's publicly owned land. The plans call for this space to be turned into a beautiful public park that acts as a gateway and a terminus to the trail. And so we plan to commission and install a significant work of art here.
I mentioned a minute ago that we have struggled in the past to get developers and property owners to embrace the trail vision. But now, most office and residential developers have begun to understand the trail's value to their bottom line, and they use the trail as a way to market their spaces to prospective tenants. The latest mixed-use project that's going to be built is called 2151 Hawkins, and it's currently in the planning stages. It was very important for this developer to be located on the trail and to activate the ground floor of their building facing the trail with retail, restaurants, and art. This site is the original location for the Front Porch Sundays that Maria talked about a minute ago, and one of the Magic Carpet murals. So once they build this, that one Magic Carpet mural is going to be destroyed, which is okay. But the developer wants to keep the creative trail energy and activity alive in their new project. So we'll be working closely with them, and we'll use the Public Art Master Plan to help curate along this new trail edge. And lastly, as we mentioned, the rail trail runs between South End and Uptown. As you can see on the map to the right, Maria, point that out, there's a major gap on the trail over a highway that forces trail users to get off the trail onto adjacent streets to cross over. So our organization has led funding efforts to build this bridge with the city to better connect South End and Uptown. It's the priority of the project team for this bridge to be an iconic work of art in itself. Kind of like the images of the bridges in Denmark and Portugal that you see on the left-hand side. And so we are proud of our success in convincing the powers that be to include an artist on the project team. As you can see from these Instagram posts, the rail trail, especially because of the art, has become a citywide icon and a destination that attracts citizens from all over the region, and especially our furry friends that you see here. We think they need art too. So with that, that's the Rail Trail, Charlotte Rail Trail story. You can see more of our plans and projects on our website, charlotterailtrail.org. And thank you all for listening. Back to you, Yvonne.
Thank you so much, Cheryl and Maria. This is really great. I love how colorful the Charlotte Rail Trail is and how you're using so many different kinds of art to get people on the trail, celebrating the trail. So with that, that concludes our scheduled presentation, but we do have time for one or two questions. So we're going to start with a fabulous question. Thank you. We're going to start with a fabulous question from Rachel, who wanted to know how we can get trails people and arts people talking. How can we get trails people and arts people talking about art? And any of you can answer, any of you.
This is Jordy. We formed a regional trails advocacy group called the Coastal Trails Coalition, and that was with the help from the National Park Service Rivers and Trails Conservation Assistance Program. Anyway, that group has been around for a while. They've been a non-governmental voice, and that has included both artists and art advocates as well as trail enthusiasts. So we've been able to meld our efforts together through entities such as that one.
Thank you so much, Jordy. Anyone else?
Well, this is Jim Toya, and we certainly have the advantage in Easton of having an active arts community, and but you know, the social networks are so easy to make things happen these days. I think having an actively engaged, you know, Twitter and Instagram account and Facebook page, and actively encourage friends groups as part of the trail, that you'd be surprised how many connections become established through that. And you know, Jordy spoke about national calls before. There's no reason why you can't make a national call for artists, as not to actually create art, but to be consultants about ideas for art or relationships between artists and trails. That would be my quick, you know, reply.
Thank you so much, Jim. And we do have a lot of really good questions, but unfortunately we can't get to all of them today. We have the contact information of all our panelists on the slide in front of you. So if you would like to reach out to them individually, you can do that. For the questions submitted to us, we can make sure that our panelists get to them and you get an answer. I just want to thank everybody for their attendance and participation. I hope you found this presentation informative and helpful to you and relevant to you as you continue to develop, manage, and promote trails in your community. Again, you'll be receiving a follow-up email shortly after this webinar with a link to the recording and to a feedback survey. We would really appreciate it if you could take time to fill it out, as it helps inform future webinar topics. And with that, I just want to thank all our wonderful presenters as well as all of you for attending, and I hope to see you all on another webinar in the near future.